because usual suspect. It's still ongoing, a thrilling game between Arsenal and Newcastle there, with Arsenal in a 1-0 lead, and we are into what, the 99th minute of the game, 5 minutes of added time, but it looks like the referee, Steve Hooper, still wants to see more action, so the game is still going on. For those of you that may be wondering, so. But yes, I know my headline says full-time score, but in the final whistle is finally at last gone, and Arsenal do secure the victory. 1-0, it's finished between Arsenal and Newcastle, as Arsenal secure themselves that second place finish for this season. A bit of a feisty game, a bit of a game that pitted rivals, and bearing in mind that Arsenal had already lost 3 times to Newcastle this season, so it's finished it finished 1-0 in favor of Arsenal. So I just wanted us to digest it all. I wanted us to digest it all. But what a game! What a game! What a game have we witnessed! Beautiful, beautiful game. Arsenal literally getting away with it, because in that first half, they were not the best team on the pitch. Really, really, they weren't the best team on the pitch, and that's why I say that Arsenal have gotten away with it. But it has eventually finished. Arsenal 1, Newcastle 0. As David Raya secured his 13th clean sheet of the season to go level with Nottingham Forest's Matt Sells ahead of the final day, which is next weekend, possibly I think on Sunday. I stand to be corrected on that. I'll be checking that and more. But that's the action. Declan Rice scored the all-important goal, and yet David Raya on the other side needed to make at least 5 saves in as far as the first half was concerned, to make sure that Arsenal secure victory today and make it to 71 points, beating up against Newcastle by a goal to nil. By the Newcastle have not yet secured their place in next season's UEFA Champions League. And remember, they do play Chelsea on Sunday. Sorry, no, it's not Chelsea. It's not Chelsea. It's not Chelsea. I need to find that study of the games, of the matches that will be coming next week. So anyways, guys, let me know where you're joining us from. Kindly like the broadcast if you're just joining us. It's good to have you. Yes, Newcastle's final game will be up against Everton. They will be at home at St. James's Park. A game that I do think they will go ahead to win, but yeah, they've yet to secure their place. So guys, kindly please like the broadcast and also subscribe to the channel. If you're new here, Robert Kesakos is my name, coming to you live from Kampala, Uganda. Let me know where you're joining us from. Write down in the chat room. Kindly like the broadcast and also subscribe to the channel if you're new, and help our community continue to grow. Yes, I'm waiting for you guys to let me know where you're joining us from, how has been your day, how has been your Sunday, and let's get into that conversation. We're just back from that thrilling game between Arsenal and Newcastle. Arsenal have won that game by a goal to nil. Declan Rice scoring the only goal of the game, while David Raya made 5 saves in the opening half there to secure victory for us, because in the second half, Arsenal managed to limit the sort of damage that you would expect to come from Newcastle. They managed to neutralize the threat that Newcastle would have posed, but also more importantly, Newcastle did miss their star striker in Alexander Isak, who missed today's game with a groin injury. But what a thrilling game did we have, especially in as far as the first half was concerned. So guys, like the broadcast, please let me know where you're joining us from. Let me know where you're joining us from. What team do you support? Did you watch the game? And let's get into that conversation. Let's get down into that conversation, because Yes, I can see PD Creation says, hello, brother. Hi, PD Creations. How are you doing, my brother? Where are you joining us from? I'm from Kampala, Uganda. That's in the eastern part of Africa. Thanks for asking. Do let me know where you're joining us from, PD Creations, um, and possibly what you do. You say you're fine. That's good to hear. That's good to hear. Where are you joining us from? I'm good. I'm good, my brother. How are you doing? Drawing Lover. Hi, Drawing Lover. How are you? Are you an artist? Um, good to have you here, Drawing Lover. Much appreciated for the love and support. PD Creations is from India. Okay, that's very beautiful. Much love from Uganda to India. Lots of people have really supported me on the channel from India. So much appreciated, my brother. There. Do you have a girlfriend? Drawing Lover is asking. Do you want to get me one? Drawing Lover? You want to get me one? Do you draw lovers? Do you bring lovers together? What do you do, Drawing Lover? Anyways, beautiful, beautiful to hear from you guys. Also, Drawing Lover, where do you come from? Let us know what country you're getting us from. And possibly, if any, do let me know what team you support. PD Creations. I think PD Creations. Are you into digital marketing and things of that nature? Graphics and what? Is that what you do? Is that why you call yourself Creations, or you're also a content creator? Please let me know. But it's good to have you guys here on the broadcast. So we are discussing that Premier League action that Drawing Lover is asking, where you from? I'm from Kampala, Uganda. I don't know if you've heard about Uganda, but it's a small country in East Africa. That's Africa being the continent, East Africa being the region, the regional block, and right down in the capital called Kampala. So that's where I'm from, Drawing Lover. PD Creation says, yes, brother, I'll give suggestion to my friends, subscribe to your channel. Thank you so much, PD Creations. Thank you so much for the love and support. Yes, I'll be really, really glad if you go ahead and click that subscribe button, but also click on the like button for this particular broadcast and continue to support what we do here, so that you encourage us, you give us the motivation to always continue go. Your hair is small. Yes, I do cut my hair. I do cut my hair because when it's too much hair, it sort of becomes itchy, it gets a bit hot and that kind of thing. So I do cut my hair. Uganda is poorest country in the world. This thing is true. I do not think it is the poorest, but it is one of the third world countries. It may not be the poorest in the world, but it is considered a third world country. So yeah, that's what I can say. Yes, I hope that answers your question, PD Creations. I think in some ways, for example, look at it the way you look at India, just slightly in a little sense, that you have some people that are rich, some people that are really, really poor in India. So now, for us here, the majority are below the poverty line. What do you do for a living? PD Creations is asking. Okoyo, let's stick to the game, guys. Okoyo is right, but having these interactions is also right. So, what are you doing for a living? I'm a YouTuber. I'm doing YouTube. Anyways, guys, let's get back to the conversation of the game. Very interesting game. We did witness there. Arsenal winning that game by a goal to nil. Of course, that goal coming in the 55th minute. A brilliant strike by by Declan Rice, with Martin Odegaard providing the assist. In the first half, I thought Arsenal had, even when they were dominating possession and all that, I thought they were too vulnerable. I thought they were slow in contending with Newcastle's threat. They gave away a lot of spaces for Anthony Gordon and Harvey Barnes to run into. Callum Wilson wasn't posing too much of a threat, but he created good diversions he shifted attention from Gordon and Harvey Barnes for them to have a lot of space to run in. We had Ben White oftentimes being caught up out of a position. I like your friendly nature. Thank you so much, PD Creations. Much appreciated. So, because Ben White was doing the overlap, going up front to create that triangle between him and Bukayo Saka and Martin Odegaard, he often left a lot of space for Anthony Gordon to run into, and that's why every time Anthony Gordon got past the ball, he was quick to run to, William Saliba, who by the way was substituted at halftime, and they brought in Ricardo Carafiori, who I thought Carafiori also had a very decent game in the second half. So that's how I looked at the game. And then, of course, David Raya, in the opening 10 minutes of the game, he was so sloppy and clumsy with his passing because he gave away twice the ball. Yo Messi, hi Yo Messi, welcome to the broadcast. Thank you for being here with us. Please like the broadcast, because like the broadcast and also consider subscribing. I'm seeing you here for the first time, but much appreciated for the love and support. So twice he gave away possession in quite a clumsy way and in a very dangerous areas, slightly outside the 18-yard box, and Newcastle managed to counter back. I think one of the moments leading into a corner kick, and he was forced into saves. So saves that were out of his own wrongdoing. So he was quite lucky to get away with those in the opening 10 minutes of the game. And then in the 13th minute, Leandro Trossard had a very, very brilliant attempt on goal, but I think that ball went a couple of inches wide of the mark. And then in the 16th minute, David Raya once again was called to action, and he went into a double save. I remember it was a corner. It was in the 16th minute. It was a shot from Harvey Barnes, and he saved that with the tips of his finger. I think most talented and creative person most creative person in world live in Uganda. Thank you so much, PD Creations, for the compliment, and thank you for the love and support. Much appreciated, brother. I would also be interested in understanding deeper what you also do. So, Harvey Barnes forced David Raya into that brilliant save in the 16th minutes. Barely got there, really, because it was the brush of the fingers, of the tips of his fingers, that saves that opportunity, and it turned out to be an incredible save. And then 2 minutes later, he was forced into a double save because in the first opening 20 minutes of the game, while Arsenal were dominant in possession, it was Newcastle dominating the attacks. They were really coming at Arsenal, thick and fast. So you had David Raya forced into a double save in the 18th minute, a header by, I think it was by Dan Burn. Yes, Dan Burn is header. So he saved that, and then the rebound, I do not remember to which Newcastle player it fell to, but he also saved that with a stretch of his leg, and it turned out to be another brilliant moment. So in the first half alone, in the opening about 25 minutes, David Raya had as many as 5 saves on the evening, and that was clearly the tail of the first half, because Newcastle were dominating, majority of the goal attempts and that kind of thing. And when you look at the statistics, as far as things go, especially, I think in the first half, Newcastle had double the attempts on goal as Arsenal had, and that was not a good tell. So, and overall in the game, Newcastle had more shots on target. They had as many as 5, while Arsenal had 4. Off target, Arsenal had 3. Newcastle equally had 3 blocked shots. Newcastle had 6 blocked shots. Arsenal had 5. Overall possession was 52% in favor of Arsenal compared to Newcastle's 48%. Arsenal had 10 corner kicks, while Newcastle had 7. These are statistics according to live score. So if you do find some that may be slightly deviant from what I'm reading, please mind the source. Each side got 3 red cards. Newcastle 21 throw-ins, Arsenal 18. Goalkeeper saves, David Raya had 5, while Nick Pope had only 3. And like I said, in the second half, David Raya was hardly called into any serious action in terms of making saves. All of them were routine balls that he did receive, saving corners and crosses and that kind of thing. But what a beautiful game did we have. But in the first half, it was a tale of the confidence of Newcastle and the lack of confidence of Arsenal, because we came in today's fixture on the back of 3 straight defeats for Arsenal at the hands of Newcastle, conceding as many as 5 goals without scoring a single goal over 3 different games, home and away in the Carabao Cup, and a 1-0 defeat at St. James's Park earlier on in the season. So yes, earlier on in the season, that goal scored by I think Alexander Isak's brilliant header. And then yet in comparison, because Newcastle had also won 7 of their previous 9 games coming into this fixture, and yet Arsenal had only registered 3 victories over the last 11 Premier League outings or fixtures in which they had been participated in. And the very most recent, you had to look as far back as that Ipswich game that they won by 4 goals to nil, and then you had to trace back that 1-0 victory, I think, against Chelsea, and then you look back the victory against I think Fulham by 2 goals to 1. That's the tale of Arsenal's recent form. Majority of the fixtures in between there being so many draws against Everton, Brentford, Crystal Palace, against Manchester United, and things of that kind of nature. So really, form hadn't been on Arsenal's side. But it was the £100 million signing in Declan Rice that came up to rescue Arsenal with a brilliant strike in the 50th minute that secured Arsenal all 3 points on the day to ensure that they move to ensure that they stay in second place with 71 points as after 37 games played. Regardless of what happens between now and then, it's very clear that this season they are amassing lesser points than they managed to amass last season, because last season they finished with a tally of 89 points, 2 behind the Premier League winners, Man City, who amassed 91 points. So clearly, it tells you how bad a season they've had, or how far off they've fallen off the wagon in as far as their contributions are concerned this season. What the result means, again, of course, it means that Newcastle do remain in third place as they wait for Manchester City to play on Tuesday. They have a game upcoming against AFC Bournemouth, but tomorrow night, Brighton will be at home against Liverpool. That's on still match day 37, and then Crystal Palace will be up against Wolverhampton Wanderers, while Man City will be at home at the Etihad Stadium against AFC Bournemouth. Remember, Crystal Palace and Man City did not play this weekend because they were playing in the finals of the FA Cup, which Crystal Palace won by a goal to nil to win their first trophy, major trophy, in 120 years, or in the club's history. Oliver Glasner, their manager, making wonders. Remember, Oliver Glasner is the manager that guided Eintracht Frankfurt to the triumph of the UEFA Europa League in 2022. So for those of you that do remember some of that football history or context, just to paint for you the picture, then Eberechi Eze was the goal scorer for that particular game between Crystal Palace and Man City. We spoke a bit about that yesterday, and we talked about his history, how he joined Arsenal at the age of 7 at the Arsenal Academy, and after 5 years, at the age of 13, he was let go. He got picked up by I think Fulham for about 2 years. 2.5 years, he was let go. Then joined QPR and loaned out, I think, to Wycombe. Did have a stint at Millwall and that kind of thing. But it was, I think, in the 2019-2020 season when he broke out at QPR, scoring 14 goals and providing 8 assists in 48 games in the championship, that he caught the eye of Crystal Palace, who took a chance on him and paid 18 million euros to sign him to the Eagles there, and he joined them. And yesterday was one of the climaxes of his career, 5 years into his contract with Crystal Palace. So anyways, like I said, the result, Newcastle will have to wait for Man City to play, because if Man City do win their game against FC Bournemouth, that's on Tuesday, they'll have a chance to move into third place on the Premier League table. And those 3 games, Liverpool on Monday against Brighton, then Man City against Bournemouth, and Wolves against Crystal Palace on Tuesday, will conclude match day 37 as we go into the final games, of the season. And those will come, I think, on the 25th of May, which will be next weekend on Sunday. So next weekend on Sunday will be the final day of the Premier League season 2024-2025, and some of the some of the key games you must look out for will be between Newcastle and Everton, because if Newcastle win that, then it will mean they will secure UEFA Champions League. If they don't win that and other teams that are in the chasing pack win their games, then they could eventually miss out on UEFA Champions League football. Then Aston Villa will be away to Manchester United. That's at Old Trafford. Aston Villa are still in the race for a top 5 finish, but their race is dependent on the performance of other teams, because when it comes to goal difference, Newcastle have a much superior goal difference with 22. Chelsea has 20, as well as Aston Villa having only 19. And those are 3 teams that stand at 66 points at this stage of the competition after 37 games played apiece. And then, of course, like I said, Man City have their game in hand. And then, of course, Nottingham Forest somehow are still in that conversation, because if they win their final game, their final game will be up against will be at home against Chelsea. Yes, Nottingham Forest face off with Chelsea on that day. So now that is going to be a very interesting fixture, because whoever wins between Chelsea and Nottingham Forest could have an opportunity to play in Europe, depending on how other results go. And if Nottingham Forest win that game, they could secure a UEFA Champions League game football, provided Aston Villa, probably Newcastle and Man City maybe lose their respective games. So it's going to be a lot of mathematics that we'll get to discuss in the course of the week as things do follow in that respect. Then maybe briefly in some of the other results of the day, we did have Everton beating up against Southampton earlier on in the day, while Nottingham Forest goals for Everton were scored by Ndiaye, I think Ndiaye, I think that's the pronunciation of the name, Liman Ndiaye or Ilman Ndiaye, that's the pronunciation of the name. The Nottingham Forest beat up against West Ham United by 2-1. Morgan Gibbs-White on target there for Nottingham Forest, and Milenkovic on target, while Gerard Bowen scored the only consolation for West Ham. Mariam Omuto says, any good news from Liverpool? Yes, there's some exciting news from Liverpool. I'm going to give you that in a bit. My brother, how are you today? Mariam from Uganda. Thank you, Mariam, for joining us once again. Good to have you back on yet another broadcast. Much appreciated for the love and support. Yes, I'm going to be giving you the news that is coming out from the Liverpool camp, including their sort of early celebrations when they traveled to Dubai, while I think the manager was in Ibiza. That's Anna Slot. So let me give you that in just a bit as we get to look at some of these other results from the Premier League. Then Brentford lost to Fulham by 3-2. Fulham had to come from 2-1 down to win that one, but Raul Jimenez opened the scoring for Fulham, while Brian Mbeumo, who also missed a penalty in the same game, scored the leveler in the 22nd minute, and 6 minutes later missed a penalty. Then Juan Visa in the 43rd minute scored to make it 2-1, while Chiani scored to make it 2-2. That's in the 68th minute, and then Harry Wilson scored in the 70th minute to make it 3-2. What is happening to KCC in Uganda? KCC seem to have more problems than just one in as far as their situation is concerned. Ever since, of course, the sacking of their coach Abdallah Mobiu, for whom things were not really going well for the better part of the competition, because at some point they have been in the title race, that kind of thing. But yeah, things really didn't go according to plan. And then the other result was, of course, Leicester City beating up against Ipswich Town by 2-1. Jamie Vardy scoring his 200th goal of his Leicester City career on his in his 500th game. So that was there. And then, of course, Mark Atta there scoring the other goal to win for Leicester. But those two teams are already relegated, as we pretty much know the situation in that on the table as far as the Premier League is concerned. So, anyways, let's speak Liverpool. Yes, Liverpool have everything good going for them because, like we spoke recently, they're trying to do their signings early enough, so that by the time they get to preseason, they are done with most of their business. One of the reports is that they want to give Luis Diaz a new contract to extend his contract, to extend his stay at Liverpool. That's there. Then the deal for Jeremy Frimpong is completed, really just waiting to be announced, because he did complete his first part of the medical as a new Liverpool player and is waiting to put pen to paper on a 5-year contract that will run up to June 2030 as a Liverpool player. So the Dutch international will be joining Liverpool as a right back. That's the player from Bayer Leverkusen, who they are signing for 35 million euros as their first signing of the summer, and I think their second signing under the stewardship of Arne Slot, because their very first signing was Federico Chiesa, who they signed back last summer as the only player they signed to Liverpool. Of course, they tried with Zubimendi and failed, but Federico Chiesa, I do understand that Napoli are requesting for him on loan. So do keep your ears out for that conversation. And more regarding Federico Chiesa, Napoli want him on loan, and then Liverpool may want to insert there an option to buy, or an obligation to buy at the end of his loan spell, because while he's not a bad player, but his career has really been hampered by so many injuries, because we all remember when he broke out on the scene during the Euro 2020 that was played in 2021, which was won by Italy in the finals. I think they won that on penalties when they beat up against England. So that's that. Then Liverpool are also in the race to sign Milos Kakes, the AFC Bournemouth left back, who is believed that will cost them about 45 million pounds. That's according to Code Offside. But they are trying to sign Milos Kakes as the new left back for Liverpool to strengthen their side. They are also looking for a midfielder, a holding midfielder or a central midfielder. And among the options, they are looking at Crystal Palace's Adam Wharton, whose value is estimated at about 60 million pounds. But they will face competition from the likes of Barcelona and Real Madrid, who have been rumored to be having interest in the player, as well as Manchester United. They've all been rumored to have interest in Adam Wharton from Crystal Palace. 21-year-old England international there at Crystal Palace. Very decent player that Liverpool are trying to monitor or to get involved in that conversation. Liverpool are also interested in signing Florian Wirtz from Bayer Leverkusen. They did make an inquiry to his camp about the possibility of signing him, but like I said, Bayern Munich and Manchester City are the two leaders in the race to sign Florian Wirtz, whose market value is estimated to be about 150 million euros, which is what is believed that Bayer Leverkusen will ask of any team that may want to try to sign him. Of course, his agent is his father. Of course, they normally move with the mother to secure their son's future. Bayer Leverkusen, under ideal circumstances, would love the player to stay at Bayer Leverkusen for another year, but there's a lot of interest from Bayern Munich, like I've said, and then interest from Manchester City. Last week, he did travel to Manchester in the UK to have more negotiations or talks with Manchester City officials. My brother, do you remember this? Do you remember the video of Mohamed Salah and the video of Antiki, which they made about Isaac? About Isaac or Isaac? Do you mean Isaac? I'm not sure I've seen the video exactly, the exact video you're relating to, but yeah, that's the conversation around Liverpool and some of their targets. But also because what's his name? Darwin Núñez, yes, because it is believed that Darwin Núñez will be leaving the club at the end of the season. Liverpool are also in the market for a striker, and they do have their sights on Alexander Isak, who may be too hard to pull out of Newcastle, but their alternative is they are also looking at Hugo Ekitike, who we spoke about recently, who is at Eintracht Frankfurt. That's the 22-year-old French international that they are monitoring. So Liverpool are really in the market looking for different players. They want to sign a centre back, and they could look at the options of McGahey from Crystal Palace. They cannot look in Everton's direction because we all know they are arch rivals, but they may look at Milenkovic, who is at Nottingham Forest, as some of their defensive targets, given that they've lost out on Linhausen, who has joined Real Madrid. Of course, not only them, Chelsea were also in the race for the same player, as well as Arsenal. Speaking of Chelsea, following Linhausen's move to Real Madrid, they've switched their attention to Gerard Braithwaite from Everton, as well as McGahey from Crystal Palace. But Newcastle are also interested in signing McGahey from Crystal Palace. So we'll wait to hear more on those developments. Chelsea are also monitoring the situation of Ebelechi Eze. They would want to sign him from Crystal Palace, although Arsenal have also certainly been mentioned in those kinds of conversations. Then Ryan Cherki, that is the Lyon left-footed attacking midfielder slash right winger, did say that he will be leaving the club at the end of the season. So, and did bid his farewells. Where his next destination will be is yet to be determined, but at least he will be leaving the club. And then we've spoken about Jonathan Tah leaving Bayer Leverkusen to go to, Bayern Munich. Bayern Munich are really looking at multiple players. Bayern Munich are also interested in signing Xavi Simons from RB Leipzig, because RB Leipzig did not secure European football, not the UEFA Conference League, not the UEFA Europa League, not the UEFA Champions League. They finished outside of those places for the first time since 2016-2017 season. So that means some of their hottest talents, including Xavi Simons, want to make a move away. And Manchester United, Arsenal, Chelsea, some of the teams that are monitoring the situation or interested in the services of Xavi Simons, but Bayern Munich are also in that conversation. However, Bayern Munich's priority is Florian Wirtz. If they get Florian Wirtz, then they won't be signing Xavi Simons, because both pulling off both deals may be too expensive to do in one single window. Because remember, there's the UEFA financial fair play rules and those kinds of things that they do have to follow. Then Benjamin Sesko is another player that will be leaving RB Leipzig this summer. So we are waiting to see. We all know Chelsea have interest, Arsenal have interest in the striker. So we'll wait to see where his next destination will be. Then Sporting Lisbon won this the Portuguese league yesterday. Victor Gyökeres scoring in that final game as they wanted to, clinch the title. And he was asked whether he will be playing at Sporting Lisbon or where his future will be, and he was a bit coy about that. And he said he was focused on celebrating, winning the league and that kind of thing, and that he will get to talk about his future maybe another time and see what happens. But for now, he's focused on celebrating. So we all know that Arsenal, Manchester United, Chelsea are all interested in signing Victor Gyökeres from Sporting Lisbon, who has played in England before, played for Swansea, played for Coventry before moving to Sporting Lisbon. So that's a cohort of some of the major transfer news that is making the rounds in as far as European football is concerned, in as far as things go. Then maybe, yes, PSV did win the Dutch Eredivisie for the 26th time because Ajax bottled it, because Ajax at one point had a 9-point lead, I think with about 5 or 6 games left that were left to play, and they bottled that. So really, it's not really happening Then back to Arsenal, the Arsenal boss, that's Josh Kroenke, the son to the club owner, Stan Kroenke, has sent a message out to the Arsenal fans saying that they plan to invest in the squad this summer to bring in more players to try and win major trophies next season. And here is what he had to say. We plan to invest to get behind winning and doing better next season. Our sporting director, Andrea, will play an important role in this. We are crystal clear on exactly what we need to do and the way in which we want to do it. Those are comments from Josh Kroenke there, the son of the Arsenal owner, Stan Kroenke. So those are Americans who own Arsenal. That's what he had to say. So there are also reports making the rounds that some European clubs have been sort of caught off guard or been surprised in the way Arsenal are making moves in the market. Of course, on the surface, there's not much that is happening beyond the Martin Zubimendi deal that is as good as done or agreed in that sense. But reports from Spain and elsewhere have suggested that that some clubs have been surprised when, I think, speaking to some of their targets, that for some of them, Arsenal has already held conversations on the possibility. Then the possibility of signing them. Then the other thing that has been mentioned was that Andrea Bata is trying to change how Arsenal go about transfers. All Liverpool fans in Uganda, we should support our brother to the next level. Thank you so much, Mariam Omoto, really. And please do encourage Liverpool fans and any other football fans that you do enjoy the sport with to kindly come and subscribe to the channel and join us on this path of always, speaking football and among other things. So maybe the one thing I may want to mention to some of my followers, especially those that do enjoy, local football, and how I get into this is that I used to write sports news, and that was between 2014. I wrote for Big Eye. I've written for websites like freakick442.com and that kind of thing. But with time, I sort of doubled down a bit on our local sport, the football. Not that I do not follow it, I do. Boss Royal is here. Yes, Boss Royal. Hello, my brother. How are you doing? He's there from the UK. I think, yes, Boss Royal is from the UK. I stand to be corrected, but that's what I believe, and that's what I remember. So there's that kind of element to it, Mariam, in case you ought to know. But so, like I was saying, Andrea Bata is trying to change the way Arsenal go about transfers. If you observe Arsenal over the last two, I think, windows, especially the summer windows, is that they've all, actually not just the last two, in some of the players they've signed over the years, especially during Edu Gaspar Daoudi's tenure, that they held out for players that they really wanted. Like they waited until it was late in the window. Sometimes they missed out on them and had to wait until the following season and that kind of thing. So Andrea Bata is trying to change things in the way they do things. For example, it is reported that when he walked in, he got to know that Arsenal had Alexander Isak as their primary target for a striker. He made inquiries about Alexander Isak and realized that deal is, the chances of it happening are probably at 25 to 75. That's, in terms of possibility versus impossibility, in that ratio out of 100%. And they say, we are moving on to, alternative targets. We're not going to sit and wait, for things to move in our direction and then do business. So that's the other conversation that is coming out of Arsenal, or in the way Andrea Bata is trying to go about, transfers at Arsenal. So maybe Arsenal fans would be interested in knowing that news. Then Barcelona want to give Rafinha a new contract. That's according to the Barcelona president. From what I was reading, that's according to, yes, they want to give Ansu Fati, Rafinha, and among a few other players. Yes, according to the Barcelona president, Joan Laporta, they want to give Rafinha a new contract because they do not want players with just a year left of their contract. He also spoke to Wojciech Szczesny so that he stays at the club at least for another 1 year. And then he also spoke about Ansu Fati, and he said we want Ansu Fati to continue. He has a valid contract. He's an extraordinary man. He's a player who has gone through difficulties. I would love for him to return and get more minutes. So, and for those of you that may have watched Barcelona in the last couple of games, he's been one of the players that have featured in some of their last few games. Then maybe from France, Alexander Lacazette, former Arsenal striker, may have played his last game against for the club. I saw big bits of farewell to him at Olympique Lyon, where he scored his 200th goal for the club. So that is there. Then at Olympique Marseille, Mason Greenwood scored 21 goals in the French League One this season, on level with PSG's Ousmane Dembele. So they will share the golden boot for the French League One. In as far as that news is concerned, I think in one way it must feel Manchester United fans pain, or Manchester United as a club, their pain for losing a talent like Mason Greenwood. And because I think it was back in 2022, or I think in 2022, that's when it all starts. There were these rape allegations levied against him by an anonymous lady that whose names have remained anonymous. So, and then those charges were dropped, and then the club, Manchester United, did their own investigation and then decided to, or concluded to let go of the player. Now, the way they let go of the player is it wasn't the player dismissal. They sold the player. Remember, initially they loaned him out to Getafe, where he performed really well. So he returned to the club, and then he got sold to Olympique Marseille, where Roberto Di Zerbi had been, deployed as manager after he had left Brighton and Hove Albion. So, and he's really, really done amazingly well. And I sometimes I sit there and imagine that. Imagine Manchester United still had Mason Greenwood, helping out with these Amadou Diallos and Alejandro Garnacho. Maybe he could have been one of those brilliant talents that Manchester United would be sort of very, very proud of. So, anyways, briefly back to Barcelona. I was looking for those comments about Szczesny from Laporta. Laporta said, we want Szczesny to stay at Barcelona. The other day, he was celebrating the victory while smoking a cigar. I saw he wanted to stay. That's what the president said. We also have good goalkeepers in the reserve team and in the youth team. So that was Laporta speaking about Szczesny. Because I think Barcelona, yes, won their 28th La Liga title. So they had massive celebrations, across the city. And, we all know Szczesny is a very, very big smoker. For Chelsea fans, we can compare him to your former manager, Mauricio Sarri, a very, very big smoker. Also did manage Napoli and Lazio there in Italy. So then they are also working on renewing Frankie de Jong's contract. That's at Barcelona. They are working on renewing his contract, Frankie de Jong. So then they're going to revise Lamine Yamal's contract. They're going to renew it and sort of, no, it has actually already been agreed upon to be renewed and, improve his terms and, conditions and his salary and that kind of thing to appreciate the kind of performance he's given them. So that's for Lamine Yamal at Barcelona. So yeah. So guys, some of your teams, yes, then Manchester United are going to rival Arsenal in the pursuit of the Athletic Bilbao midfielder in Oihan Sunset. We've spoken about Oihan Sunset before here on the broadcast because he's a very, very decent midfielder, 17 goals to his name and 3 assists. in about 32 or 33 games this campaign. So very, very good creative midfielder that Arsenal are going to are considering signing, but Manchester United are also involved in the thick of that conversation. That's according to Code Offside. So look out for that kind of that news as well. Then Ryan Cherki is, for me, is one of those players that I really, really appreciate. Left-footed winger slash attacking midfielder, good with the ball on his feet, good dribbler, a good creative player, is one of those players I really, really appreciate. Then there's a player at Villarreal called Alex Baina, a very, very good player. I've not watched plenty of him really in action, but I do think he's another a good player that Premier League clubs may be are targeting. Then of course on Friday night we also spoke about Emiliano Martinez. Even on Saturday he did work goodbyes to Aston Villa fans in the aftermath of their 2-0 victory against against Tottenham Hotspurs. So Sevilla are having here a player sent off for a dangerous tackle against Aurelio Tchouameni in that game between Real Madrid and Sevilla. So he said his goodbyes because his contract is ending. And when Unai Emery was asked whether he will be staying with the club, he was coy about that. He said they will see in the summer, but the player has offers from the Saudi Pro League as well as European clubs. So let's wait and see, because he could leave the club after a period of 5 years, having joined Aston Villa in 2020. When he left Arsenal, he's since been named FIFA Best Goalkeeper of the Year on 2 different occasions. So that's the kind of goalkeeper that we're talking about in Emiliano Martinez. And in the wake of that news, Aston Villa are set to rival Arsenal among many other European teams that do want to sign Espanyol's goalkeeper, Joan Garcia, who has a release clause of about 25 million euros. Although that is reported, it is said that fee could rise in the not so distant future. Let's wait to hear on how that situation equally develops on that side as well. Then, for me, I think teams that are looking for goalkeepers, they should also look at Unai Simon, the Athletic Bilbao goalkeeper, very, very good goalkeeper, because they do have an understudy in Giza Baraga, something like that, who has been in goal for the course of their European Championship or the UEFA Europa League campaign. A very good goalkeeper. So Unai Simon starts on the Spanish national team ahead of Arsenal's David Raya. So that's speaking of David Raya briefly, he's today reached 13 clean sheets, level with Matt Sells. So whoever keeps a clean sheet in the final game of the season will walk away with the Golden Glove. If they both keep clean sheets, then they will both share the Golden Glove. Remember, David Raya is trying to defend it, having won it last season. What more should we speak about? Sorry, guys, I'm trying to follow the game between Real Madrid and Sevilla, because in Spain there's so many games that are being played that are going on. But meanwhile, let me look at some action or reaction from that game between Arsenal and Newcastle that we did just witness. I can see David Raya getting all the praises for those 5 saves. They're saying phenomenal. I mean, there's that save that he pulled. I mean, he had no right, absolutely no right. Then take a bow for Declan Rice for the stunning goal that he scored. Declan Rice's goals in all competitions at Arsenal, 16 in 102 appearances, while he scored 15 in 245 appearances at West Ham. So that's the comparison there. Then what's more there? Then still looking at some of the reaction. Of course, Arsenal did bid farewell to their fans. They had the banner to say thank you to their fans, because that has been their final game of the season at the Emirates Stadium, because their last game of the season in the Premier League will be away at St. Mary's Stadium. So we'll get to know more on that. So anyways, I'm still looking at some of the reaction, but some of the people training is David Raya, Eddie Howe, Ricardo Carafiori. I don't know why Ricardo, but Jakub. For me, my man of the match in that game, had it not been for David Raya's immaculate saves, I think I would easily have gone with Jakub Kivior for Arsenal's victory over Newcastle, because I thought Jakub Kivior had a very decent game overall, especially when William Saliba is substituted off at halftime. He really stepped up. He was the leader in that back line. He really stepped up. So I mean, you can't just make that shit up. Very good. And by the way, Ricardo Carafiori equally had a very good game once he came on. So this is Babs 14, an Arsenal fan says Calafiori, by the way, came on for Saliba and dropped another solid performance. Clearly a top player. Mad to think he's only 22 years old. And then I've missed Ben White. Ricardo Calafiori has so much to offer next season. Martin Odegaard is looking so much closer to his best recently. I like what I see. Yes, of course, for me, he had some sloppy moments. That's Martin Odegaard, but he provided a crucial assist there that gave Arsenal the winning goal through Declan Rice. Then Ed Howe. Let's look at some of Ed Howe's comments, if you can find any. I think about the performance. Ed Howe says, I think it was a really strong away performance, but you've got to score. That's what he had to say, because they did not score. Newcastle United ready to spend £150 million in the summer transfer window, with a right winger, forward, and goalkeeper high on manager Ed Howe's wish list. That's according to Transfer News Live, or Deadline Day Transfer is the handle there on X. Still looking for more of Ed Howe's comments in regards to that result that they just got, following that loss at the Emirates Stadium, because over the recent couple of times he's got one too many over Arsenal. Arsenal have scored with their 52nd shot against Newcastle this season. So you can imagine 52 shots against Newcastle, and they only scored one goal. So, but really, for as far as that game is concerned, and Newcastle missed Jolinton in that midfield, I sort of felt that they missed his physicality, they missed his tenaciousness, and then going forward, they did miss Alexander Isak. Ed Howe on Alexander Isak said it is too early to say if he will play versus Everton. That's next weekend. It is a strange one, as he felt it after training. Got a scan this morning to see what the damage was. Hopefully he will be available, but we do not know. That's Ed House speaking about the absence of Alexander Isak. So they really did miss his presence, because he's a very big game player and he's always caused Arsenal trouble. Arsenal defenders dread him. I think he's one of the strikers that they do trade. Then I did watch an interview that William Saliba did, and they asked him one of the toughest strikers he's had to face, and he said, clearly Mbappe. That's what he had to say. And then Mikel Arteta also did an interview. Where is Uganda Cranes now? That's Mariam Umuto. Well, Uganda Cranes, because they do not have a game at the moment, upcoming at the moment, every player is at their respective club. But remember, they've already qualified for the Africa Cup of Nations that will be played in December. That's the 2025 edition, I think. The Africa Cup 2025 edition that will be played. And then they do have a qualifier game to play for the FIFA World Cup qualifiers. That's our 2026 edition. So yeah, so do expect that to be coming not too far from now, not too far from now, but sooner or later we'll be having the Africa Cup of Nations 2025 edition. I'm trying to find, yes, remember that will be the 35th edition of the Africa Cup of Nations, and it will be played in Morocco. And then remember, Morocco will be part of the 3 teams that will host the World Cup 2030. Yes, 2030. They will be hosting with Spain and Portugal and Morocco. Those will be the 3 countries. However, the first game, I think, of that edition of the FIFA World Cup will be played in South America. I think in Paraguay. I think about 2 games may be played in Paraguay. One in Paraguay and Argentina. I'll check again on that. James Migi says, hello again. How are you doing? Hi, James. Good to have you back. Welcome back to another broadcast. Good to have you. Thank you for the love and support. Thank you for returning, really. So, yes. So, in December, we'll be having the 35th edition of the Africa Cup of Nations. It will kick off on the 21st of December when Morocco play Comoros. Yes, and then the following day, Mali will be up against Zambia. South Africa will be up against Angola. Of course, the time is not yet communicated, but Uganda's first game will be on the 23rd of December. They will be playing against Tunisia. So that's what you should expect in as far as the Africa Cup of Nations 2025 edition is concerned. Maybe to exhaust Mariam's question, here are the 8 groups of the Africa Cup of Nations 2025 that will be played in Morocco. Group A has Comoros, Mali, Morocco, and Zambia. Like I said, Morocco are the hosts. Group B has Angola, Egypt, South Africa, and Zimbabwe. Then Group C has Nigeria, Tanzania, Tunisia, and Uganda. So Uganda are in Group C with Nigeria, Tanzania, and Tunisia. Remember, Tunisia won the competition in 2004. Yes, Tunisia won it in 2004. Then Nigeria won it just recently, before Ivory Coast won it. And then they're one of the record champions of the competition. And then, of course, Senegal has also been among the most recent winners, alongside Cameroon. Cameroon, I think, winning the 2019 edition. Then in Group D, there's Benin, Botswana, DR Congo, and Senegal. Then in Group E, there's Algeria, Burkina Faso, Equatorial Guinea, and Sudan. Algeria also one of the recent winners. Then Group F has Cameroon, Ivory Coast, Gabon, and Mozambique. That's to answer your question. So East Africa is represented by Uganda and Tanzania, and they are both in the same group. That's Group C to answer. Hi, James. How are you? How has been your day? Kindly let me know how your day has been, really. So that's to answer Mariam's question about Uganda Cranes and the Africa Cup of Nations that they will be participating in. So that will be later in December. Just a few days to Christmas, that tournament will be kicking off. And I think for any teams in Europe that do have, African players, of course, Liverpool have Mohamed Salah, Manchester United have Andre Onana, Arsenal have Thomas Partey. I do know there's a player that recently switched allegiances. How did you feel about today's Arsenal versus Newcastle game? It was a very good game, a game of two different halves. I thought Newcastle were the better side in the opening 25 minutes of the game, because that's where David Raya's 5 saves of the game came from. I thought David Raya in the first 10 minutes was quite a bit sloppy in the way he played from out the back. He had 2 blind passes that almost cost Arsenal, but he sort of compensated for those errors with some brilliant saves that he made. He literally corrected his own mistakes when he saved from the resultant efforts that came in there. And then, like I said, in the 16th minute, he had that brilliant save of Harvey Barnes, strike with the tips of his fingers. I really thought that was going in, but he pulled one off. And then in 2 minutes later, in the 18th minute, he was forced into a double save, one being a header from Dan Ban because it was a set piece. He saves that, and then the rebound fell to, I do not remember which Newcastle player, and then he saved that with his leg. So I thought Arsenal, while they dominated possession in the first half, they really gave away a lot of space in the way they played. They gave too much space to Anthony Gordon and Harvey Barnes to run in behind them. Ben White was overlapping, doing the overlap to do their triangle with Bukayo Saka and Martin Odegaard, which had yet to pay off anyway, and did pay off in the end. But that created a lot of space for Anthony Gordon to run in behind him, and that's why every time Anthony Gordon got the ball, he was quick to arrive to William Saliba and Jakub Kivior, and force them into saves, or force them into a corner kick and that kind of thing. And the same thing almost really happened on the left side, where Harvey Barnes was running at Miles Lewis Kelly, because Miles Lewis Kelly was pushing a bit further up. So that really didn't do well. Raya should be player of the season for Arsenal. Honestly, has kept you in better positions all season. When it comes to the Arsenal player of the season, Okoyo, yes, Raya has been one of the standout players, but for me, I would give the accolade to Declan Rice. I thought he's really done well. He's been one of the most consistent players in that Arsenal team, Declan Rice. And then even today, he scored that goal that gave Arsenal all the 3 points. He's come to Arsenal's rescue on many occasions. And then you look back at James says, yes, I agree with Okoyo. James agrees with Okoyo, but me personally, I beg to differ. I think I'll give it to Declan Rice, but of course, David Raya would be really close. I think it's going back, James, briefly to today's game. Like I was saying, take away that moment, that goal from Declan Rice, and really Arsenal did not struggle Nick Pope that much, and it's been that kind of game. You look back at that game against Manchester United, in the 1-1 draw. Again, it took another moment of brilliance from Declan Rice. You look at that 3-0 victory for Arsenal against Real Madrid in the quarterfinals of the UEFA Champions League. He was man of the match. Got the 2 goals. When we went to the Santiago Bernabeu, another man of the match performance. So for me, overall, across the entire season, he's been the most consistent Arsenal player, and he's the one I would, for me, vote for Arsenal player of the season. But I do understand your choices, because David Raya, I think, has been the second best Arsenal player in that squad. So if you were to ask me for the top 5 Arsenal players in this sort of bad season that they've had, I'd go with Declan Rice, David Raya. I would bring in Miles Lewis Kelly in there. I'll bring in Kai Havertz in there, because for all the period he's been injured, he's remained Arsenal's top scorer. And then I'll also add on Mikel Merino in that. The reason as to why I add on Mikel Merino is because of what the kind of contribution he's had ever since February, around February something, when he was moved from the midfield to play as Arsenal's false 9. And yes, name top 5. Like I said, Declan Rice, David Raya, Miles Lewis Kelly, who was my 4th player, because Mikel Merino was the 5th. Yes, Kai Havertz and Mikel Merino. Yes. So because Mikel Merino, we all know it's not been a dream start for a new player in an Arsenal shirt for Mikel Merino, and yet what happened was, we come to February. Kai Havertz gets injured during the Dubai camp for Arsenal, and then he's pushed to play up front, and he's gone on to score 7 goals in the Premier League, I think, and provided 4 assists while playing in that role. That has been, I think, across all competitions, that has been a very decent turnover or contribution We remember his assist against Real Madrid in the UEFA Champions League in the second leg and his goal in the first leg. So overall, I think I would give it to him to be in the top 5 players. Then briefly going back to today's game, I thought if it had not been for David Raya's 5 saves, I would have gone for Jakub Kiwior as my man of the match. I thought he really stepped up, especially after in the second half when William Saliba was taken off. I thought Jakub Kiwior really stepped up. He led that back line. He commanded. He led by example. He threw his body on the line. Of course, some of them were close. I think there was an incident where he sort of swoops up the ball, and if he had been a second late, it could have been a penalty. But he had an overall good judgment, and he led Ricardo Carafiori really well, which Ricardo Carafiori really did well. Maybe the other question that we would ask ourselves, maybe Arsenal's goal of the season. And I've observed it's been one of those debates that has gone on. So James, tell me, what has been your Arsenal goal of the season? Besides David Raya, who you think has been the Arsenal best player of the season, who has been the other standout player for you? That if it were not David Raya, you would give the best player accolade of the season. I think for Okoyo, the Liverpool fan, I think Liverpool's things are quite self-explanatory because player of the season, really, Mohamed Salah. That's their player of the season. Most improved player of the season for Liverpool, I think I would go with Brian Gravenberch because he's what, only 22 years, turning 23 or thereabout. His second season in the Premier League, and he's really been crucial in that middle of the park for Liverpool. So as far as Liverpool go, most improved player, I'll go with Brian Gravenberch. James says, of course, Rice. Then he comes back to say, if you're not considering Raya, yes, he says Declan Rice. So I think, given that you're putting Raya number 2 and I'm putting him number 1, tells you how close that race would be, or that vote would be, if you put it, in front of a bigger number of Arsenal's players. So for Liverpool fans, do you agree with me that Mo Salah is your best player? I do not think that is up for debate, but Brian Gravenberch has been the most improved player of the season, and that's who I'll go with. Speaking of Liverpool, I think Nottingham Forest and Nottingham Forest and Leeds are interested in signing Harvey Elliott from Liverpool. Those two sides are interested in signing Harvey Elliott from Liverpool. So Liverpool may want to keep some of their youngsters, but they are garnering a lot of interest from elsewhere. So overall, I thought Jakub Kiwior and David Raya were the standout players in that match. And then, of course, Declan Rice. I do not think he went with the same kind of energy that he has run over the last couple of games. But I mean, it's the end of the season kind of fatigue that you do expect players to have. Leandro Trossard had a good game. By the way, you may be surprised that Leandro Trossard could be one of the players that has featured, I think, in most Premier League games for Arsenal this season. I think he got a red card in that game against Manchester City. Those stupid red cards that they were giving to players for delaying a restart, which we all did not agree to at the start of the season. And Mikel Arteta does seem to suggest that the rules changed after Arsenal had gotten 2 of those such bookings. Of course, the first culprit being Declan Rice in Arsenal's 1-0 draw against Brighton, and then the 2-0 draw against Manchester City, Leandro Trossard being the other culprit. Then he was also speaking. James, I want to hear from you, and maybe Okoyo, as well as Mariam, if you're all still with us. Mikel Arteta saying, he was being asked what was the difference or why they failed to win the Premier League title this season. And he said it was because of red cards and injuries. Because Arsenal amassed 6 red cards this season, and of course we've known about the whole extent of their injuries. Do you agree with him on that submission? In case you need any reminders, some of their red cards, Miles Lewis Kelly had 2 of them, but one was rescinded. That was in Arsenal's 1-0 victory over Wolverhampton Wanderers. Ricardo Carafiori scored that goal. So he then got another. I do not remember what game it was. But then, of course, Trossard and Declan Rice were the other players that got red cards. And then William Saliba got a red card versus AFC Bournemouth. And then Mikel Merino. Excuse me. Yes. Mikel Merino in the 2-all draw between Arsenal and Liverpool. So those were the 6 red cards that Arsenal got. Of course, when it comes to injuries, they suffered so many injuries, and their players missed a whole host of games across the campaign. But for some of the injuries, if I'm to reflect back, you've had Takahiro Tomiyasu, who has been out for majority of the season. Gabriel Jesus, Ben White had to undergo a knee surgery. Ricardo Carafiori has missed up to more than 23 games. Bukayo Saka missed 23 games, or even more. Kai Havertz, those are all players got injured. Kian Tierney out injured. The captain Martin Odegaard missed 15 games through injury. Gabriel Magalhaes missed a huge chunk of games. Zichenko missed games. Julian Timber and Mikel Merino. Mikel Merino was the first culprit, I think, when he suffered that shoulder injury. As soon as he had joined, he suffered this in training. So that's 12 players who were absent for more than 10 games. For more than 10 games each. James says, well, to be honest, you can say that, but when Liverpool dropped points, Arsenal too dropped points. Arsenal should have capitalized. Yes, many red cards were not truly red, but again, what can you say? But yes, injuries did hamper their progress, no doubt, just like Liverpool last season. Yeah, and I think when it comes to injuries, if we're to sit down and do a debate about teams that have been hampered, when we sit down to have a debate about teams that have been hampered by injuries and how they've coped with that, again, I think Arsenal have coped a little better than other teams, because look at where Tottenham are in the trenches. It is largely because of the so many injuries they've had. Then United have had their fair share of injuries, although for them, injuries are not entirely to blame, really. For them, their problems are deeper than that. Then Chelsea, by the time we got to December, Chelsea were in the conversation of title contenders. And then they got some key injuries, including the likes of Romeo Lavia, who had formed a very good partnership with Moises Caicedo in that midfield, alongside Enzo Fernandez and whoever else had been substituted for Enzo Fernandez. Then they lost out Wesley Fofana at some point. Levi Colwill was absent at some point, to the extent that they had to recall Trevoh Chalobah from Crystal Palace out on loan in January. So they suffered injuries, and those really hampered their progress in the season, or the way they would have gone about certain things. So they really, really had trouble with that. Okoyo comes back to say, brother, squad depth and maturity matter with league and tournament games. All your round emerging season will be back in August, then World Cup. Yeah, I mean that's well said, because again, I'll say this for those of you that have chanced yourselves into watching my predictions of the Premier League for this season. The reason as to why my prediction was that Arsenal would finish second and not win the Premier League was largely due to lack of squad depth, because I thought they lacked a creative midfielder who could fill in the void for Martin Odegaard. They lacked a winger who could fill in the void for Bukayo Saka if those players got injured. I thought they lacked a striker. That was very, very key and high on my list. And we've seen the evidences of all that they've missed a striker all throughout the season. Sorry, I've been watching Kylian Mbappe, I think, score a goal here for Real Madrid against Sevilla. Anyways, so that among other factors. So you had a squad that was sort of narrow, and then they also suffered injuries. That was the tale for Arsenal, because they moved on players and did not replace them. You moved on Eddie Nketiah, who of course wasn't scoring so many goals, but across the entire season would have his contributions, whether it was in the FA Cup, whether in the Carabao Cup, because once you build those kinds of players in such games, it means a rest for some of your more senior players who then get to play in the Premier League week in, week out, and in the UEFA Champions League. So when they rest their bodies, they are less prone to certain injuries and that kind of thing. So you move on Emily Smith-Rowe, who joined Fulham, move on Reece Nelson, who joined Fulham on loan, didn't replace them. Fabio Vieira went out on loan. You didn't replace them. The only player that was moved on and replaced was Aaron Ramsdale, unless they got a goalkeeper in Neto. Never mind, he's not played so many games, but at least you knew you had backup. Then you went into a panic signing that has completely not worked out in Raheem Sterling, who you got from loan from Chelsea. It is not really worked out. One of the terrible signings in Arsenal's history, in my opinion. His only contributions could be counted on one hand, maybe not even to full, because all I can remember is the good game that he had against Bolton in the Carabao Cup. So, and that kind of thing. So, James, you say, yes, Okoyo, you are right, but Arsenal still a team of boys. So, in my opinion, I'll give credit to them, but yes, they need to win something big next year. Of course, everybody knows that that next year is Mikel Arteta's last roll of the dice, in as far as trying to win something big is concerned. And he did make a surprise appearance at the Arsenal Vision podcast that is run by it's called what? James something. He does write for the Athletica, and he calls himself Ash Block on X. So I think James McNeil or something. So he made a surprise, appearance on that podcast, and he said that he asked fans to be a little bit more patient, and he said we are trying, and we're going to win trophies, or big trophies are coming, and that was his sort of promise. But we all know, and for me, the one thing I do not want people to forget, or want Arsenal fans to forget, even in their demand for trophies, is the manager they are demanding the trophies from. We are talking about a manager that he's never won. Not that debutant managers have never won, but he's never won a league. So over the last course of the 5 years in which he's been trying to build this Arsenal project, it goes without saying that his inexperience also counted. And we've seen that when he fails to rotate his team, when even he has the options available to him. And yet when in comparison on the other side, you've seen Pep Guardiola rotate his team so many times that you have a Phil Foden who is in the best of their forms, and then in the next 2 or 3 games is not even starting. Sometimes he's not making even the bench. Why? Because he's rotating them to so that when they do get into the second half of the season, maybe into that final bend of 15, 14 games, they have all the energy to go full cylinder and try and win the league, which is they've done well on so many occasions. So again, Arsenal's lack of squad depth, the inexperience of the manager, the inexperience of the players themselves who have never won major titles has all been a contribution to that factor. Because when you look at Arsenal's squad, only Jorginho and I think Gabriel Jesus, Zinchenko, and Kai Havertz have won major trophies. Jorginho and Kai Havertz having won the UEFA Champions League in 2021 with Chelsea. Of course, Zinchenko and Gabriel Jesus won the Premier League titles at Manchester City. So that's the kind of cohort of players that you're talking about. Those are players that have won something in as far as major titles are concerned. And when we say major titles, we're talking about, of course, the Premier League as well as the UEFA Champions League. So really, that for me is the expectation on that front. But they'll continue to fight. I think maybe at some point we'll sit and talk about what the different clubs need to do in the transfer window. Liverpool, yes, maybe Okoyo can tell us, as a Liverpool fan, what are some of the signings that he thinks they must do, or what positions he thinks they need to strengthen going into the next season, but also building for the future, bearing in mind that the likes of Virgil van Dijk, the likes of Mo Salah are not growing any younger. Of course, me, I have my personal opinions in regards to where I think they need to strengthen and probably go ahead and win the Premier League yet again next season, and maybe even the UEFA Champions League. I have my views on that, but I'll be interested in hearing from Okoyo where he thinks that Liverpool need to strengthen. And to you, James, I'll put the same question to you. And when you look at your Arsenal team, that squad, where do you think Arsenal really need to strengthen? What are their priority, at least 3 or 4 positions or even more that they need to strengthen in? When you talk about squad depth, what kinds of players would you want to see at Arsenal if they are to really compete with the big boys come next season? Because I think Real Madrid are going to better themselves from the team they've been this season with the coming in of Xabi Alonso. Barcelona will continue to strengthen in as far as the UEFA Champions League is concerned. Bayern Munich are already in the transfer market looking for players to strengthen their squads to compete favorably next year in the UEFA Champions League. We all know they fell to Inter Milan this season. Inter Milan won't be a weaker team. Napoli is going to qualify for the UEFA Champions League. Hell, they may win the Scudetto, and there will be another key competitor. They are looking to strengthen an already good team that is going on to possibly win the league this season. And then PSG are going to strengthen the team. They've already started doing that work in January. Man City have already strengthened their team, and they continue to look to do so because they signed 4 players in January. That was Kushanov, Omar Mamouche, Nico Gonzalez, and Vitor Reis from Palmeiras, the 19-year-old Brazil defender. So, and yet they are looking to sign Tian Rienders from AC Milan. They are looking to sign Florin Bats from Bayer Leverkusen. They're looking at a whole host of options as there for players to sign for Pep Guardiola to rebuild his new Manchester City, because they've gone this season without a trophy, and that has been the first time that Pep Guardiola is not winning anything ever since 2016-17 in his debut season in England. So really, guys, let me know where you think the priorities should be. Mariam Omoto says yes. Okoyo, Mariam is also a Liverpool fan, so you guys can always connect. Liverpool, we always said, but always sleep in the second round of all competitions. Speaking of Liverpool, for me, I do feel that one, Liverpool need a centre back because we know that Virgil van Dijk is not growing any younger, but then the availability of Gomez is sometimes questionable as a backup, defender. Then Ibrahim Konate this season at some point suffered an injury, and of course Joel is called what? Joel Quash or Quensha came in and sort of stepped up, but I think they need a centre back there. Of course, they need a right back, and they've signed Jeremy Frimpong, so that position is covered. They're looking to strengthen at left back and give Robertson another, backup or competition. They're looking at Milos Kakes, but maybe they could eventually get another player should they fail with Milos Kakes. Then I think they need a holding midfielder, central midfielder, somebody that can help Ryan Gravenberch, and that's why they are looking at Adam Wharton. So those are so far 4 players: centre back, right back, left back, and a central midfielder. And then obviously they will need a striker because they are planning to move on Darwin Núñez. So those are 5 key players that Liverpool need for next season. And then of course, if Federico Chiesa is to move on to go and join Napoli on loan, as it has been speculated, then they will need another winger in addition to Luis Diaz, whose contract they are looking to extend. Maybe Diego Jota gets to stay for another year. Cody Gakpo then is available. Then you have Mo Salah, and then so those are at least 5-6 players that I do think Liverpool may need in this transfer window going into next season. And also bearing in mind that Mo Salah will have to go to leave in December to come and play the Africa Cup of Nations. So I think they may need a player there. Okoye comes back to say Liverpool. Okay. Anyway, I read that comment. James is yet to respond. to us about Arsenal's priorities. It would be interesting, guys, if you invite for me a Manchester United fan to come on this broadcast, and we also engage him or her about their team, and we and we see what their views about matches about their club are, and that kind of thing. So Real Madrid have a 2-0 lead against Sevilla. Jude Bellingham and Kylian Mbappe were the goal scorers. So Okoyo says, in the transfer market, there are really no players actually which suit the English Football League, being a stiff league. I think EFL teams need to refocus on the youth teams, back to the roots. PSG and Barcelona have done so. I think I would say you yes and no. Why? Let me begin with the yes. The yes is that Barcelona continuously prove to teams that you can get good players from your own academy, and they come and compete and they play good football. They've shown that with Pau Kubasi. They've shown that with Lamine Yamal. They've shown it with a whole host of players. Ansu Fati is one of the squad players. He's an academy player. Gerardo Martin is one of those players out from the Barcelona ranks, and then of course, in addition, all the senior players that they've had to bring in: Rafinha from Leeds, Lewandowski when he left Bayern Munich, Ferran Torres, of course, joining them from Manchester City a couple of seasons ago. Dani Olmo joining them from he came from out of Germany in the aftermath of the Euros. I do not remember the club exactly, but he joined them. So, Sevilla have 2 red cards in this game. That's very unfortunate. So, Barcelona continue to show up. But the reason as why I say yes and no is that you need a combination of both. And maybe in the UK, when you look at actually this season, Real Madrid have had to rely on some of the academy players, although Carlo Ancelotti was hesitant to bring them into the fold. Raul Asensio is one of those players, the centre back. He brought in from Castilla because they had so many injuries in the back line. Fran Garcia at left back is one of those. Never mind that he's not as good as Ferland Mendy or any other left back that you may have watched over the years, but at least they got that one from the academy and that kind of thing. So really, it is correct what you say, that maybe teams need to look to their youth teams. Most Arsenal fans, I'm sure, did not know much about Miles Lewis Kelly, and yet he's broken onto the scene and helped Arsenal in more ways than not. Of course, we started seeing Ethan Nwaneri about a season back. Bukayo Saka, one of the players who runs the show at Arsenal, is an academy player. Of course, they had to move on Eddie Nketiah, Faririn Balogun, as well as Emily Smith-Rowe and Reece Nelson, although just on loan, but those he will also eventually leave the club, but those are all Arsenal academy players. So Man United, they've fallen off the wagon in terms of pulling out of good players from out of the academy. Of course, they do have a mass as one of those players that they are brought in from the academy, but the last very good player to come out of that academy was Mason Greenwood, and then you had Marcus Rashford. But we all know what has happened to all those. So I do want to agree with you to a certain extent, Okoyo, but also know that that PSG did sign Gonzalo Ramos for about 80 million euros or more, and then they've signed Kivica Kvaratskhelia. Those are players they've spent good money on. Ousmane Dembele was signed for 50 million euros from Barcelona. So those are players they've had to sign. Marquinhos has been there for as long as we can remember, really dating for as far back as the times of playing alongside Thiago Silva. So they've also signed the players. They did sign Achraf Hakimi. He's not an academy player at PSG, but João Neves was signed from Benfica just last summer, quite expensively. So really, Fabian Ruiz was signed from Napoli. So yes, you need the academy to play a supporting role, but you cannot really also over rely on the academy, because because these are big teams playing high tempo games, high pressure games, clubs that have lots of expectations. So you can't just pull out very young, so many youngsters and put all those expectations on their shoulders. So James comes back to say, if let's assume that Gyökeres did sign for Arsenal, do you really believe that Arsenal will be winners of the Premier League or a Champions League? Let me answer that question. Manchester United sucks. Anyway, that's your opinion, James. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. But to answer your question, James, again, I'll say this. I do not know if Arsenal sign a striker, it is not enough for them to win the Premier League or the UEFA Champions League. And here's why. One, I've already made the argument in some circles that Arsenal need more than one striker. That's for starters. And my logic is simple. My reasons are simple. One, you could sign a big star player and they get injured. You remember Urian Timber's first season. He came, we watched him in pre-season, looked a very decent player, can play across the entire back four, left back, right back, center back, very good player. First game of the season versus Nottingham Forest, gets an anterior cruciate ligament, ruled out for the rest of the season, and returns only at the back end of it. So you could sign a striker like Victor Gyökeres and lose them to injury in the first 2-3 games of the season. Then what do? You switch back to default settings where you only have Kai Havertz as a makeshift striker from midfield or Mikel Merino, back to square one. So you need two strikers. And again, I've said it again because Arsenal have lost their understudy strikers. You lost Edin Ketia, you lost Ferenc Balogun, you lost Mika Biliath, who moved to Austria and then eventually to AS Monaco. All those are gone. So even Achido Martin Obi, who was upcoming from the academy, has left for Manchester United. Never mind what's happened to him. So signing only one striker is not enough for Arsenal to win the Premier League or the UEFA Champions League. That's the first thing. Two, if Arsenal sign a striker and do not sign a left winger, that will also be it will be similar to what Arsene Wenger did when he signed Mesut Ozil and refused to sign a striker. What did Mesut Ozil end up with? He ended up with Olivier Giroud, who, by the way, in all his goodness as a striker, wasn't quite very clinical on the day. He ended up scoring 16 goals in that season of 2015-2016, when Leicester City went on to win the Premier League title. For those of you that do remember, you had Mesut Ozil, who had been signed in 2013. He signed him, very good move, but he did not sign a striker. He decided to stay with Olivier Giroud. Following summer, he went on to sign Alexis Sanchez, very good player, but still, while Alexis Sanchez contributed so many goals, they needed another support striker. He did not do that. So in the end, they didn't win much beyond the FA Cups. So Arsenal need to sign, yes, they need to sign two strikers. They need to sign a creative midfielder to help Martin Odegaard, because once you pull out Martin Odegaard out of that team, all the creativity is as good as gone, almost really. Then they begin relying on the wing player of Bukayo Saka and Gabriel Martinelli. So then you need a player like maybe Oha and Sunset. You need a player like Alex Baina. You need a player like Ryan Cherki, or even, and I've suggested this in some circles, that Arsenal can go and offer Kevin De Bruyne a 2-year contract to be a squad player. Just imagine you have two creative midfielders in Kevin De Bruyne and Martin Odegaard. We all know that pound for pound, Kevin De Bruyne is a better player. Yes, he's in the evenings of his careers and he's not the player he was 2-3 seasons ago, but he can make that contribution as you wait on Ethan Nwaneri to sort of continue developing his game. So they need a creative midfielder, they need a winger at the left, but also, and the reason as to why they need one at the left, they need somebody to support Bukayo Saka. You cannot leave all that load for Bukayo Saka, given all the amount of games he's had to play across the entire season, given how he gets battered and knocked around during the course of games. So really, they do need so many to strengthen in so many positions, especially going forward. But also, they need a good backup goalkeeper. Just imagine you lose David Raya to injury, the same way Newcastle lost Nick Pope for some time, and they had to call in Martin Dubravka. The same way Tottenham Hotspur lost Guillermo Vicario to injury, and they had to bring in a new goalkeeper. So You need a good backup goalkeeper. Every time Pep Guardiola has looked to Ederson Morales and is absent, he's had a Stefan Ortega. Look at Liverpool. Every time Alisson has been out of the season, Kelleher has stepped up and did the good work because he's a very good keeper. Speaking of Kelleher, Leeds are also in the race for Kelleher, and there are other clubs that are interested in signing him to give him fast in football. So, James, you say, okay, given the money to Arteta, and damn sure he will create a team like how Liverpool chased Man City. That's the hope. And you say, you come back to say yes, or please not Ryan. Anyway, I'm not saying it must be Ryan. I'm simply giving you players that are in that mold that you would need, that Arsenal do need. So it is up to them to make the final decision. Remember, FC Porto are already having discussions about retaining Fabio Vieira to another season-long loan, or if there's a possibility to buy him back. Now, he has about 2 years left to his contract because it runs up to until June 2027. So there's that topic. And the question was, would you welcome back Fabio Vieira at Arsenal? I do not think he will be able to manage the Premier League game. I do not think he's built for that kind of game. Maybe he would thrive in a different team, but in the way this Arsenal team has been built to play, he doesn't thrive in it. If you look back at the Arsenal team that lost the first 3 games of the season, I think for the 2021-2022 Premier League season, that they lost to Chelsea, they lost on the opening day against Brentford by 2-0 at the GTEC Stadium. Ivan Toney being one of the goal scorers because Arsenal had some players suffering from COVID. Then they went and lost to Chelsea by 2-0. I do not remember the 3rd game of the season that they lost, but at least they lost. So that team that had Martinelli, Bukayo Saka, Emily Smith-Rowe, that young team, I think you would have thrived in that kind of team, you get, because they played with a lot of freedom. While the game was still tactical, they played with much freedom as opposed to how everything is sort of being managed today. Today, you feel that the game is a bit mechanical, the way Arsenal played, the way Arsenal played that game. So maybe he would have suited well in that mold of team. But present day Arsenal, I think he would really, really struggle unless he's coming back to play in Carabao Cups and maybe some, early stages of the FA Cup. I really do not see much room for him in that team. But he's not a bad player at all, one bit. He is not a bad player at all. I think he's a very, very decent player. But Arsenal need a player that they would to replace him, and they need a player that is a bit more technical, a player that is more gifted in terms of taking off players, like dribble past a few players, but also has a very good final pass. So that's the kind of player that Arsenal need in that role. So if you say no to Ryan Cherki, it is okay. Let them find the good alternatives there. But for me, he's one of those players that I come to appreciate, as well as Alex Baina, as well as Ohan Sunset. I've not had the chance to watch Ohan Sunset and Alex Baina on so many occasions, but at least when we look at some of the things they do, they're very, very decent players. And then there's still questions over Thomas Partey. Will he stay? Will he not stay? The club want to offer him a new contract. Whether he does accept that the way it is remains to be seen. But Arsenal are reported to be lining up, options for Thomas Partey's replacement should they not come to an agreement on a new contract. Leandro Trossard is being offered a new contract, while there are reports that Arsenal could be willing to listen to offers for Gabriel Martinelli. So for me, I think Arsenal have so many things they need to fix. They need a minimum of 5 new players, and maybe even as many as 7 to improve their squad the way it is. And that's because you're already going to lose Kian Tierney, who is leaving to Celtic. You're planning to sell off Zinchenko. That's more or less a given. So that means you need to strengthen at left back. You'd need a backup left back player, maybe a young player that is upcoming. And the reason as to why I say that, because for the first season, we've seen that Ricardo Carafiori, as good as a player he is, of course, he's supposed to be a centre back. we are wasting much of his talent by playing him at left back. But that notwithstanding, I think he is better. He's injury prone, a bit injury prone. And then Takahiro Tomiyasu would be a very, very good player if he could stay season fit. I could make that Arsenal backline much, much better for me. Whether he's playing at left back, at right back, at centre back, he's a very, very good player. So then Gabriel Jesus, I think for 2 seasons now, it's injuries that are keeping Gabriel Jesus at Arsenal. At the start of this season, he was injured, and that's how he avoided being sold. Same thing is going to happen next season. He's going to be out injured because of the knee surgery, and then he will avoid being sold. But he's one of those players that Arsenal should be looking to sell and move on and have them replaced. So James says, well, to be honest, sorry guys, my microphone went out of battery. Sorry, my microphone went out of battery. I needed to substitute it. Let me know if you're able to hear me now. Are you able to hear me? Let me know if I'm being audible enough, and then we can proceed. Okay, good. So I was saying that I was talking about Rodrigo Goes, who has been heavily linked to the potential move to Arsenal. Of course, Manchester City are interested in the player. Liverpool have been low-key mentioned, but I do not think they are serious contenders. But you never know; things could change. Chelsea have been mentioned in that conversation as an opportunity signing because his reports say he's feeling a bit unsettled at Real Madrid because he prefers to play coming off the left wing, and that's where Vinicius Junior loves to play. That's where Kylian Mbappe loves to play, and that kind of thing. So he's sort of fallen into the shadow of the two, players in Kylian Mbappe and Vinicius Junior, and yet he's a very, very good player, only still 24 years of age. So according to reports, is that Mikel Arteta and all the other clubs that are interested in his services, including Manchester City, is that he will be an opportunity in the market. That kind of player that suddenly comes up on the market may have not been on your initial plans, and you're saying to yourself, we really have to get that player. So now, and here's the thing, the context for Arsenal, why we are saying that you need 2 strikers. When you look at Arsenal, if they were able to get Rodrigo Goes and a striker, then they would not need to sign a second striker because Rodrigo Goes has the ability to play across the entire front three. Although predominantly he loves to play from the left wing, but he also is good at playing centrally. So that means he would be your first backup striker as opposed for you having to run to Kai Havertz. And then, of course, Mikel Arteta said once they get strikers, then Kai Havertz will go back to his role as a midfielder. Whether that really works out remains to be seen. Mikel Merino, I'll be interested to see how Arsenal set up that midfield with Martin Zubimendi, Mikel Merino, Declan Rice, Martin Odegaard. How he sort of what Mikel Arteta's preferred starting midfield would be if he had all players fit. I'm forced to think that if he had all players fit, he would prefer Martin Zubimendi, Declan Rice, and Martin Odegaard. That's how I would want to think of it. but he's Mikel Arteta. He gets to think of things around, and that's how Thomas Partey has ended up playing at right back on numerous occasions. So really, it remains to be seen how they do behave. But if Liverpool get those signings, the 5 players that we talked about, they could as well defend the title. If Arsenal get those 5 or more players, then they will be really, for me, they will stand to be favorites to go ahead and win. Of course, by whatever happens in the course of the season, because that we can never predict. Then also, it is going to be very interesting to see what Man City do in terms of their squad rebuild. There are reports, of course, we all know KDB is leaving. There are reports that they are open to letting Ilkay Gundogan leave the club, although they just never mind that they just extended his contract. They are open to letting Bernardo Silva leave, and reports do suggest that his former club in Benfica have had conversations with him. PSG have been long-term admirers, as well as Barcelona. So let's wait and see how that goes. We all know that they do want to move on John Stones. Safa Ali is back. Hi, Safa Ali. Safa Ali is our colleague from Turkey. He's a Fenerbahce fan. We were with him, I think, yesterday, but one or so. So then we are waiting to see. They want to move on John Stones. They want to move on players like Mateo Kovacic, although I have a strong feeling that one could stay for another season. They are going to move on Ederson Morales. They are willing to let him go, and he has interest from Saudi Pro Leagues, Saudi Pro League clubs. So with all those players believed to be on their way out of Manchester City, Jack Grealish is one of those players that will be on his way out of Man City, but anything changing. You get the feeling that Manchester City are going to be quite busy in the transfer window, and they need so many things to do, so many changes that may come their way, and which I think would sort of put them a bit off in terms of their competitiveness, because Pep Guardiola will be trying to get that team to gel once again, because losing that many players in the same window is not always easy for you to just replace them and you have an entire team gel together. We've seen things not click instantly for Nico Gonzalez, as well as Kushanov and that kind of thing. Sorry, I had to go last time. It's okay, Safa Ali. It's completely understandable. Really, completely understandable. Earlier on, I was with Daniel Tuton. Daniel Tuton. He also had to go from the earlier broadcast because he had to do something. Galatasaray declared its championship this evening, unfortunately. Oh, wow. Galatasaray winning the Turkish league there at the expense of course, of Fenerbahce, who did, I thought they competed well. So again, Safa Ali, last time when he was with us, he was telling us about the Turkish league and of course where things have gone. Maybe a bit sour for Jose Mourinho in terms of how they compete and that kind of thing. And that kind of thing. So, but it was interesting to sort of learn how things did go. I think their league also concludes next weekend. Is it the case? Oh, no. Next weekend, is it? Is that the case? Oshman Ikali Morata. I can see. I'm looking here. Galatasaray have 89 points. Fenerbahce came second with 81 points. But I think Safa Ali, if Mourinho is given more resources the way he wants them, he could really guide Fenerbahce to a league title next season. He could really guide Fenerbahce to a league title next season. I think that they should give him another chance. What do you think, Safa Ali, about Jose Mourinho staying for an extra season? Please let us know in the comment section. And James says, if Arsenal are relying on making a big bet on Partey, then in my personal opinion, it's just another waste How many years do Arsenal need to hear about Partey being injury prone? Again, for me, the returns of Thomas Partey is not for him to stay primarily as your number one player that you rely on. I think for the last two seasons, especially for this whole season, I think Mikel Arteta has been preparing himself to move away from that kind of number six kind of player in the mold of Thomas Partey. Even when they are looking for a replacement that in his sort of kind of mold, and there've been a few number of names that have been floated around as potential replacements for him. Although I do not remember them often. So yes, he's injury prone, but in his defense, when he is fully fit, he's one of those players that you can really count on to stand out in a big game, to be the guy that you look on to. And remember, just to remind you a little bit, James, for example, Arsenal signing a player like Martin Zubimendi, who we spoke about last time. For those of you that care to know, Martin Zubimendi is not a player in the mold of Thomas Partey. He's a player in the mold of Jorginho, more intelligent, much slower. So he's not physical. He's not that kind of physical player that is going to go into heavy duels and tackles and that kind of thing. He's a player that plays more with his intelligence. He likes to get there before you think he will be there. He's that kind of player to play the pass before you all think that he's about to play it. So he is a different mold of a player, and he's a replacement for Jorginho as opposed to a Thomas Partey. Now, the kind of player that, sorry about the internet glitch, guys, the kind of player that Arsenal have that would slightly look in the mold of a Thomas Partey would have been Albert Sambi Lokonga. But we all know that his talent is not as that big, or he still needs more time, playing regular football to develop into that kind of player. So Arsenal can't really rely on him. So that's to answer your question, James. Safa says we haven't seen the effect of Mourinho this season, but if management changes next year, Galatasaray will be the favorite because they will probably get Osimhen's transfer fee from Napoli. So Galatasaray are looking to retain Victor Osimhen. Is that the plan? Because for all the clubs that have tried to inquire about Victor Osimhen, the sort of overhead factor or a sort of off-putting factor for most of those big teams that have inquired about trying to sign him have been his wages. He wants 12 million euros per year, which is a huge amount of sum for most clubs, because that's what he was on at Napoli before their relationship went sour. Can Galatasaray afford paying his full wages at that tune, or is the player willing to sort of back down and take a pay cut on his pay to remain at Galatasaray? I want to hear more from you, Safa Ali. I want Mourinho to stay because he has a great potential for Europe. I think he will at least win the UEFA Europa League. Oh, okay. So, Safa Ali, correct me if I'm wrong. By the virtue of the fact that Fenerbahce finished second in the Turkish league, don't they get to play in the UEFA Champions League? Please correct me on that. I'm really interested in knowing, because I mean, if you're still talking about UEFA Europa League, my expectation was that Galatasaray, Fenerbahce get to play in the UEFA Champions League next season. That was my expectation, and then maybe you have the Besiktas, Samsunspor, as well as Istanbul Basaksehir. Forgive my mispronunciation of that club, but Istanbul, yes. So, anyways, you come back to say this was James saying Partey is injury prone, though, and no big clubs like an injury prone guy. That's true. That's true. James being an Arsenal fan, I think you need no reminders that what sort of stifled Abu Diaby's career at Arsenal was because he was quite injury prone. I think he would smile in a restaurant and get injured, that kind of thing. So I do understand your views on that, on the player being injury prone. Galatasaray has money right now to remain completely dependent on Osimhen. Okay, that's good to know. That's good to know. You come back to say we will now participate in UEFA Champions League preliminary round. Okay. You have to go through the playoffs. Okay. Completely understand. Completely understand. Now Galatasaray will play direct in the group stages, and Fenerbahce will play. And Fenerbahce will play in Champions League. Okay. Okay. I get it. The teams that play the qualifiers. Okay. I do understand on that part. Then you say it's not yet clear. Okay, okay. So anyways, so okay, so they will play in the preliminary rounds. I wrote wrong. Sorry. Okay, I understand. I understand what you mean. I do understand what you meant there. Yes, because before, because leagues get qualification numbers based on how they perform and their rankings on the European scene. So that's why most of 5 leagues in Europe get at least 4 teams. That's from Germany, from the England, from France, from Italy, and Spain. And then, depending on what your rankings are, then the winner of the league comes directly in the UEFA Champions League, and then these that finish second get to play in the playoffs for those that come from weaker leagues. That's how it's been said. So I completely understand Safa Ali there when you put that context. Let me respond to this person in a second. So, Safa Ali, has Jose Mourinho given any indication that he himself would want to leave the club, or he's willing to stay? And if so, what are some of the key players he looks to bring to the club if he is going to stay for next season? What are some of those players that he's looking forward to bringing to make Fenerbahce compete better, favorably? And then, James, this question is for you specifically. Because of your concerns about Thomas Partey, let's speak in the context of still maybe German football, the Spain and etc. Is there any player that you've identified that you think Arsenal could look to if they are looking for a Thomas Partey replacement at Arsenal? If you are Mikel Arteta, if you are Andrea Bata, and you're advising Arsenal, what kind of players would you point Arsenal in the direction to say this is a player that Arsenal should be looking to sign to replace a player like Thomas Partey? No, you are correct on your question. Okay. Okay. Sorry, I missed some comments. It's not yet clear. Okay. But Galatasaray do have the big money as comparing to other Turkey teams. Yes, I think that's the case. In most leagues, that's the way it is. When you go to Spain, Barcelona, Real Madrid have the most money. And then, of course, Atletico Madrid comes in third place, which is where they usually finish. And then other clubs follow. When you go to Italy, Juventus has always had the big money. And never mind that in recent years, they've been upset. They've had their financial struggles and that kind of thing, but they always have the big money. And then you look at teams like Inter, AC Milan, Napoli, rising back to their very best from the years gone by, because they've won the Scudetto just 2 years back or so. So they're just getting back to their best. When you go to France, we all know about PSG's money, the pockets. When you come to the UK, we all know Man City financially has dominated affairs over the last couple of 7 or 8 years. United, in terms of money, have a bit fallen off the wagon because we know about their debt and current, but they're still a big club with big money. Arsenal tried to invest in Liverpool. Chelsea have had the big money because for the UK market is a bit different. Clubs do receive lots of money, but for many leagues, that's why for long Ajax has dominated Dutch football alongside PSV because they do have the money. So, and that kind of thing. So when you say Galatasaray do have the big money, I do certainly agree with you. No, you are correct on your question. I don't understand your voice going away. Oh, sorry, my voice is going away. But my microphone is on. Can you guys hear me? Oh, it has echoes. Okay, sorry about that. I think it's partly the internet and among other things because I have all my devices turned off, their voices are off to make sure we do not get feedback. Okay, good. Okay, good, James. So, yes, James, I put a question before you. Oh, Safa Ali, I do not know whether it's your connect. Okay, good. Oh, that's good. Good to have you back. That we are loud and clear. Anyways, you say yes, you're right. If we were Osman, I'd go to big teams. Okay, I certainly agree with you. It's just that each regarding party. It's just that each regarding party. That's from James. So James, you didn't answer my question on for you. If you had advisor Mikel Arteta on potential Thomas Partey replacements, who would you look at to, or which are some of the players that would you recommend? There've been some stories that have been floated around in respect to as far as who replacing a player like Thomas Partey go at Arsenal and Adam Wharton of Crystal Palace has been one of those players that have been mentioned in that conversation. Then the other player plays in France. Unfortunately I forget his name. I do not know if I can be able to retrieve it in a bit, but I'll try. You said no answer. Okay, it's all right. It's all right. If we move to Spain or England, the league, what do you mean by that, Safa? I am concerned and confused about him, though. I think I can completely understand that. There are so many Arsenal fans that are in your shoes that are not sure what the club should do with Thomas Partey. There are some who Safa, I was asking about, for you to clarify on your comment where you say, if we move to Spain or England, the league, last 3 seasons, mates, okay. I think so many Arsenal fans are within your boat, James, in a way that they are not sure. They are torn between letting Thomas Partey leave and keeping him. I think many would be of the view that if Arsenal have the perfect replacement, then bring that one in and let go of Thomas Partey. Then there are many of those who think that Arsenal should keep him for another year. For me, my argument has always been that you cannot afford to lose Thomas Partey and Jorginho in the same window. Again, it feels like that's too many changes in the team. And for a team like Arsenal that you've built over the course of time, you do not want so many changes happening at the same time. We're not back to 2021-2022 Premier League season when you had Ben White, Aaron Ramsdale, of course Martin Odegaard was returning, having been there on loan. You had Takahiro Tomiyasu, all these new players coming in. You get. I do not think that's the kind of team you want to have at the end of the day. So you do want players that have been there in the system and know the kind of system to play in and that kind of thing. So Safa says, I support Arsenal in England and Real Madrid in Spain. Oh, wow, that's quite interesting. James, you do have another Arsenal fan here who supports Arsenal in England and Real Madrid in Spain, although in Turkey supports Fenerbahce. I'm the only one writing for the broadcast. No, you're not the only one writing for the broadcast. James is equally here, others are in silence. They are in the ventilators following the conversation as we have the discussion going forward. So I was looking for something here. Let me see if I'll be successful. But Safa, you're not the only one. But even if you are the only one still, I'd still be here with you. Yes, one of the other players that has been mentioned as 2022-2023 season is still hard pill to swallow. Man, it is man. Okay, yeah, I think, yeah, that one was a hard one for Arsenal fans to swallow because they were on top of the league for what? About 200 days or more and still lost it. Then even last season, because they lost to Aston Villa by 2-0, they missed out on the title. For me, that's the game that I say where Arsenal lost the title. Yes, there's a player called Hugo Larsson at Eintracht Frankfurt, I think, in Germany, who they think is a potential replacement for Thomas Partey. Then there's another player. He's called Lucien Agueme. Yes, Lucien Agueme. He's looked at as a potential replacement for Thomas Partey. He plays at Sevilla. James, you may need to check on those players. James, you come back to say, well, I believe we lost it against Liverpool when we drew. Okay, that's your belief. Maybe, but for me, in comparison, you had two games, and because that Aston Villa game, I think, was at the Emirates, and Mikel Arteta opted to sit Thomas Partey on the bench. Even when we called for his substitution, he refused to bring him on. I think for the draw against Liverpool, I think that was sort of to be expected because you're playing Liverpool. Liverpool could have easily beaten Arsenal as well because they have the potential to do it. And never forget that you've not beaten Liverpool at Anfield since September 2012. So, and you're talking about a Liverpool side that was equally still in the competition for the title. So, really. But I know in more ways than one, there will be Arsenal fans that would want to agree with me. So, Lucien Agueme is one of those players that Arsenal has been pointed to as potential replacements for Thomas Partey. How old was Thomas Partey? Thomas Partey is what, 33, 32? I think about 32 years of age as we speak of today. Should be about, he's 31, coming on to 32. He turns 32 in June. That's Thomas Partey. Turns 32 in June. Still 31. So, and by the way, David Austin spoke about it that Arsenal do have replacements on their shortlist should they fail to come to terms with Thomas Partey. Because the last we had was that he was asking for better terms on his contract, which I do not think that given his kind of age, they will be willing to give him, they will be willing to, increase on his salary. When you look at his age, when you look at his age profile, when you look at his injury history and that kind of thing, he loves England. He would prefer to stay in England, and the latest reports I was looking at did indicate that he's willing to turn down all offers from the Saudi Pro League to remain in the UK. But if they can't agree to terms with Arsenal, they'll have to replace him. And then the other player that they did have on their list is Ayubo Boadi from Lille. But that one is only 17 years of age. That's the player. So about 3 players that Arsenal do have on their shortlist for potential replacements of Thomas Partey should things not go according to plan. In as far as Arsenal are concerned, and so let's wait and see what the summer has to offer in regards to that respect. But guys, we've been doing this for the last 2 hours and coming on 10 minutes. I think we've had a good go at it. It's up. Although it's still just 10:36 p.m. On my end. Anyways, unless you guys have more questions, I think I've answered majority of the questions. We've discussed Liverpool, we've discussed Arsenal, we've discussed so many things, transfers at the game. RIP Sukuna. Sukuna is back. Hi Sukuna. Good to have you back. How are you doing? How have you been? Sukuna, what team do you support? What team do you support? I can't make out that jersey that you're putting on. I can't make it out. Oh, you're going to subscribe to the channel? Oh, much appreciated. Much appreciated. Please do subscribe to the channel. Thank you, Sukuna. Thank you, Sukuna. Please go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Or if you have, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Really, really appreciate it. Trying to look for the Italian Serie A here. No problem. Let's hope Arteta makes it turn around. Okay, yeah, that will be the hope, I think, for all Arsenal fans going into next season. That will be the hope for Arsenal fans. But the Italian Serie A is equally on. Games are being played, and some are into half time. AC Milan, AS Roma, that's 1-1 at halftime. Cagliari up by 2-0 against Venezia. Fiorentina leading Bologna by 0-0. Como leading Hellas Verona by 0-0. Inter Milan are leading Lazio by 0-0. Udinese up against Juventus, that's still 0-0. Then Lecce up against Torino, still 0-0. Monza leading up against Empoli by 0-0, while Parma and Napoli is still goalless. And guys, if those results finish the way they are, then Inter Milan will climb back to the top of the table with a point difference in comparison to Napoli. So Napoli really need to win, and that game is still a 0-0 at halftime, and yet Inter Milan are leading up against Lazio. Okay, you say, James, you said too bad Tottenham are one steps away from a trophy. Yeah, that's the unfortunate bit. And I've been meaning to ask people here, Liverpool fans, Man United fans, Arsenal fans, who would you rather win the UEFA Europa League, Manchester United or Tottenham Hotspurs? I know Arsenal fans in the UK would rather Man United win the trophy as opposed to Spurs winning it because of the rivalry between the two clubs. But I know that Arsenal fans in Africa would rather Tottenham win it as opposed to Manchester United win it. So I think that's a huge debate. And I mean, it would be interesting if Arsenal fans from the UK were to be on a forum with Arsenal fans from Africa and have that kind of debate, who they would rather win the UEFA Europa League, because it is a given that at least one of them will win it. So you said to you come back to say, bro, don't say next season. That's why everyone says next season FC. Those are comments by former Manchester United left back Patrice Evra bantering Arsenal. James says, by the way, sir, how to make a donation to your channel? Not much, but at least I like it. Oh, sorry, James, I'm not enabled membership, that kind of thing on the channel in regards to receiving extra support. But it's something that I'm really, really considering on getting done. So I'll be looking to see how to implement that in the very near future. But for now, all I can do is maybe I can always give you my digits and then you drop something. Okay. I don't know. Remind me, James, what country are you from? James, kindly remind me what country you're from. But anyway, it is an option that I'm really considering for the channel. You come back to say 16th and 17th playing in the finals in the Europa League final. At least I can have a laugh. Well, I mean, whether you laugh or not, the ongoing debate in circles is, sir, I'm currently in India. Oh, you're in India. Okay, good, good. So I do not know what options will be available, but I'll try to leave one in the channel. You can have a laugh for those two being where they are in as far as the Premier League table is concerned. But one thing is for sure, one of them is going to win a European trophy. And all this kind of, for the last 1 week or so, I've been watching and listening to debates where people are debating between Arsenal and Manchester United or Tottenham Hotspurs, who will have had the better season if one of them goes ahead to win it. And it's a question to which different people have different opinions. Why? Because all big teams start a season to go and win trophies. Whether it is small or big, they want to win trophies. That's the goal. Whether it's a big trophy or a small trophy, that's all they want to do. So even with the performance the two sides have had in the Premier League, one of them is going to end with a piece of silverware when Arsenal do not have. However, there's also this side of the debate is that a club the caliber of Manchester United, a club the caliber of Tottenham, maybe Tottenham are not of that caliber, but wishful at least. A club the size of Manchester United begin a season wanting to play in the UEFA Champions League, wanting to win the UEFA Champions League and the Premier League title. So for them to be in the Europa League final really is not an ideal place to be. They do not want to be there. But because circumstances of their bad football and bad management of things has forced them that way, they would rather win that they're in than be walking away with nothing. Same thing applies for Tottenham Hotspurs. When was the last time they won a major trophy? I mean, it's been ages. So for them, anything will make them happy. And I was watching again somebody saying it is unacceptable for Manchester United to lose to Tottenham Hotspurs in a final. It is unacceptable. Which sort of made me wish. By the way, I have no qualms at Tottenham, going on to win it, as opposed to United winning it. I do not know if I make sense to you, James. Sir, I'm correct. Okay. Yes, bad football. Nobody said it best. Love you. Love you, man. Anyway, so, I mean, they've just played so much bad football that they are where they are. Now, and for me over the years, it's been part of the argument that because Manchester United have been winning these sort of cup competitions here and there, it is sort of oftentimes papered over their bigger or deeper problems. For example, go back to 2016, they win the FA Cup. They sacked Louis van Gaal, who I thought could have built for them a much decent team. So, in wanting to do a quick fix to try and win the Premier League and the UEFA Champions League, they bring in Jose Mourinho for the 2016-2017 season. He wins them a cup double. They win the Carabao Cup and the UEFA Europa League when they beat up against Ajax in the finals by 2-0. Goals by Ander Herrera and goals by Paul Pogba, and I think the other was Enric Mkhitaryan, who was with the goal scorers in that final. So again, And then they finished, I think, second on the Premier League table. So when they finished second on the Premier League table, they do what? He requests for more signings and that kind of thing. So, no, I don't think they finished second. I think 17-18 is when they finished second on the Premier League table. The 2017-2018 season, that's when they finished second. And Mourinho said that was his best ever season around that time. Anyway, I may be mixing the two seasons, but that was around the time. Then in 2018, of course, going into 2018-2019 season, he requests for more players, which they refused to give him, and they sacked him and brought in Ole Gunnar Solskjaer in December 2018. So Ole Gunnar Solskjaer came, did pretty much the same thing. In 2021, guided the team to the finals of the UEFA Europa League. They lost to Villarreal 11-10 on penalties after a 1-1 draw in normal time. A goal scored by Gerard Moreno for Villarreal and Edson Cavani for Manchester United. Villarreal were under the charges of Unai Emery and that kind of thing. So they didn't win anything. They sacked Ole Gunnar Solskjaer the following season, and then they bring in Ralf Rangnick as the interim. When they bring in Ralf Rangnick, he tells them they need open heart surgery. They disagree. They bring in Erik ten Hag. 2023, he wins the Carabao Cup. That's his first season. 2024, he wins the FA Cup second season. 2024-2025, he sacked, and they bring in Ruben Amorim. And look, Ruben Amorim could win them the Europa League title. And guess what? I get the feeling that 1-2 years down the road, he will be sacked. That's what I feel, if they stay on that same course. Because Jose Mourinho realized it ain't like late 2000s league, a complete new league. Yes, he came to that realization. He asked for more signings, and among the signings he wanted a centre back, he wanted a holding midfielder, and I think an attacking player. And they told him, no, you've had enough, use the players that you have. And they refused to give him the resources. He eventually got sacked. So that was it. That was it, really. That was it. So that's how bad they've been over the years. So because they've been winning those cup competitions, they've always felt that, no, we are still good enough. We are still the same big Manchester United. We can compete for the Premier League. We can go ahead and try and win titles, including the UEFA Champions League. But they've always fallen short. In fact, I think ever since Sir Alex Ferguson left, I think they've been second on the Premier League table on just 2 or 3 occasions. And one of those occasions, they were under Jose Mourinho. The second occasion, they were under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. So that's all I can remember. And I think they've only been on 2 occasions. And that's how bad it's been for them. That's how bad it's been for them. Because they've tried quick fixes, they've not worked. And they've always gone back to square one. Something happened to Arsenal. When Arsene Wenger leaves, they wanted to bring in Mikel Arteta. Last minute, Raul Sanllehi swoops in and brings Unai Emery. They wanted a quick fix, return to the UEFA Champions League, compete in the Premier League. He failed. He failed to achieve UEFA Champions League football and finished 5th. Took the team to the finals of the UEFA Europa League and lost by 4 goals to 1 against Chelsea. Following season, he was sacked. And they brought in Mikel Arteta. So, you say, yes, he will be sacked. Well, you seem to agree that he will be sacked. Let's just hope that these players or so-called boys will go on to give a run for Premier League next season. That's the hope, but not just the hope. It is the expectation. It is the expectation. The bare minimum they have to do is go for that title. Go for the Premier League, go for the UEFA Champions League, try to win it. For as long as Mikel Arteta has the squad depth that he needs, there should be no excuses, really. There shouldn't be any excuses whatsoever for him not to compete and try to win them. Whether we'll be back next season, at the end of it, discussing totally different problems and other things. One thing will be for sure, if it doesn't win any major title next season, the conversation will be for Arsenal, which manager can we bring in to take us to the next stage, which is winning major titles. And for me, the last time we had that debate, somebody was asking me, I think he's called David Melbourne Wampamba. He's an Arsenal fan. He was asking me that if Mikel Arteta were to leave Arsenal, which managers do I think could be good enough to come and take Arsenal to the next level and guide them to, winning silverware? And here is what I told him. Top of that list for me would be Luis Enrique, who is currently at PSG. Is one of those managers I would consider. I would consider a manager like Julian Nagelsmann. He's won a title before with Bayern Munich. He has that bit of experience. Still young manager, very progressive manager. Two, I'd look at a manager like Hansi Flick. Whether you can pull him out of Barcelona or not, that's another whole conversation. And then, which other manager did we look at? There were about four. But Luis Enrique, Julian Nagelsmann, we mentioned Jurgen Klopp, but we all know that's close to impossible because he wouldn't want to come back, to manage any other team other than Liverpool in the Premier League. And he has also retired, sort of low-key retired for managing football. And also we talked about Pep Guardiola under ideal circumstances. Pep Guardiola under ideal circumstances. But the main three managers we talked about was Luis Enrique, Julian Nagelsmann, and Hansi Flick. Those were the managers we looked at. And then we mentioned names, other names, and I gave him my opinion as why I didn't think they would have been good enough or they would have managed. But we talked about Massimiliano Allegri, we spoke about Zinedine Zidane, who has not gotten into football management ever since leaving Real Madrid after the 2021-2022 season, I think. No, after 2021. Yeah. After that time, in 2021, that's when he left Real Madrid. You say Arteta, of course, at least for next season. Yeah. Good to know that you agree on that front. So, anyways, guys. So, guys, there's also an exciting offer for those that are interested in, those that are interested in learning some soft skills or digital skills. There's cybersecurity, web design, and coding. Those are soft skills offered by a company called Ebostate. They are based in Kampala, in Kansanga, Kampala, Uganda. They will offer a 5% discount for those that do sign up. I'll leave the link down in the description. They help their members find jobs in the exciting digital space. They help with both in-person and online digital skills training sessions, career guidance, and help you find a job after the training. So that's Ebostate, based in Kampala. I'll leave the link down in the description of this broadcast so that you guys can check them out later. James, you say, sir, where are you located, to be honest? Much love and appreciation. Like I said, I'm from Kampala, Uganda. That's where I'm based. But yes, thank you so much. So James, it's been good having the engagement with you. I can see we've lost many of our other engagers. But before we sign out, I want to send my shout outs to PD Creations at Growing Lava. Thank you so much for the love and support. Mariam Omoto, thank you so much for the love and support. James, good to have you. Okoyo, thank you as always. Much appreciated. Then Safa Ali, thank you so much for the engagement. That's yes, there's somebody else here that I did miss. Yes, RIP Sukuna, thank you so much for the love and support. Guys, allow me to wrap it here. Let's do it all tomorrow. Of course, I'll be coming live in the morning hours. That's between 10 a.m. and 11 a.m. We'll be talking about more sport. We'll talk about that game between Liverpool and Brighton and Hove Albion, among other things. Let's go Gunners. That is what we can say most. All right, thank you so much. So And then maybe subsequently, late in the evening, after that game between Liverpool and Brighton, we'll also get to engage if time does permit us. But thank you so much for the love and support. It was good having you for all this time, and almost 2 hours and a half, 2.5 hours of doing this live broadcast. So thank you so much, James, for all the questions, for all the engagement. I really love the conversation that you contribute to these broadcasts, the engagement, the questions, and the opinions in general and everything. Thank you for the love and support. Have yourself a good night. Good night as well, Mariam Kumoto. Tomorrow we'll be speaking more of Liverpool because they do have a game against Brighton and Hove Albion. I do know Liverpool players did start their, season celebrations. They had a trip in Dubai. Some players were in Dubai. The manager was in Ibiza and that kind of thing. But let's talk more about their fixture tomorrow against Brighton. We all know that Liverpool have already won. There's nothing really for them to fight for. Have yourselves, guys, a blessed night. Much love and respect to our colleagues in India, our colleagues in the UK, our colleagues in Turkey, and back here in Uganda. Please know Liverpool, they are celebrating a lot. Well, let them celebrate. They really deserve it. You forget that they had not won a league title in over 3 decades. So they deserve it. They really deserve it. So let them enjoy their victories. I wish them nothing but the best, and also congratulate them once again for their victories. They really deserve it. They've been the better team in the league. James, I do hope that as Arsenal we can do better next season, and perhaps also get to celebrate as much as Liverpool fans are celebrating. So it was nice having you. Have yourselves a blessed night. See you guys tomorrow.